Our theme this month is wholeness. And my topic today is perfect, whole, and complete. Perfect, whole, and complete. Just breathe that in for a moment. Perfect, whole, and complete. We are first and foremost spiritual beings. We are not human beings that have some extra part of us, non-material part of us that has a soul. We don't just drop into spiritual experiences from time to time. We are first and foremost spiritual beings having a human experience. We are first and foremost spiritual beings having a human experience. As spiritual beings, we are perfect, whole, and complete. There is nothing missing. There is nothing extra. There is nothing wrong with us. Spiritually speaking, we are perfect, whole, and complete. What we are doing now is letting our humanity catch up through that. We have this interesting thing here with this essence of ours that is perfect, whole, and complete, has the charge and the responsibility to express itself in, through, and as us. So our humanity has all kinds of restrictions, constrictions, different levels of achievement, different capacities, and we have this energy that's trying to express itself in and through and as us. And we're having a lot of growing pains right now. We're having a lot of labor pains right now. Whereas individually and collectively as a society, we are trying to expand our capacity to be more. We're trying to expand our capacity to be more. This is quite an interesting time. Energetically, it is quite an interesting time. And I don't know how you feel, but sometimes I'm too afraid to even just look at the news. Really. I know there are a lot of wonderful things that are going on, but that's not what we're being shown in the headlines. What we are being shown in the headlines is the devastation, the violence, the conflict. That's headlining. Okay? Now, I'm not saying we have to put our heads in the sand. We just have to remember that that's not all that there is. Furthermore, not to see all of that in just a negative light, those are growing pains. Listen to what I am saying, that all that stuff is actually sign of progress. It is sign that we are moving somewhere. The analogy that comes to my mind is recovery. Okay? We have been addicted to violence. We have been addicted to supremacy and a whole bunch of other stuff that just has to go. It has to go. Okay? Detox isn't fun. Detox is not fun. There are a lot of people who want to be clean, they want to be sober, but they can't make it through detox. How many of you had that experience where maybe you're in some unhealthy relationships? You really want to be out of it, but you can't seem to get on the other side of it. You have a lot of good intentions, but then the energy of that keeps pulling you back. You're so attached to it. You identify with it so much. You have such a hard time imagining some other kind of possibility for yourself. Yes? Okay. And it will feel like all of that stuff is holding us. But as the reading said that we just went through in your deepest intent, there's nothing out there holding us. We are holding it. Breathe that in for a moment. There are no forms out there that are holding us. We are holding on to them. We're holding on to them. And just like it said in the reading, we are choosing to align with too many of the wrong things. It's so interesting to me how more and more now the actual language of physics and metaphysics are really mirroring each other. Now, for years and years, we've been talking about what we sometimes call in metaphysics the ethers. Okay. How everything is consciousness. And every time we think something, we're thinking it into the ethers, and it's there forever. And people just kind of look at us. Now that we have this thing called the cloud, nobody can tell you what the cloud is. Most people cannot tell you what the cloud is. But they do have this understanding that there's some place where everything is getting dumped into that just stays there. And they're like banking and counting on that it's just going to stay there for whenever they want it or need it so they can tap into it, yes? Now, the ethers was crazy, but the cloud makes a lot of sense. The cloud makes a lot of sense to folks. And it's there, okay? It's like it's all there. And just like the cloud, you get to pick and choose whatever it is you keep bringing into your unconsciousness. See? You get to pick and choose what you are continuously downloading, what you are continuously searching. We have a contemplative mind that essentially is like a continuous Google search. It's like our consciousness is on constant browse. And you don't even have to think about it anymore because the settings in your computer, as soon as you turn it on, whatever you're accustomed to browsing is there. Or like Netflix. Well, if you like this, like that, then you'll like this. If you like that drama, sure you'll like this drama. And if you like that piece of gossip, you're going to like this piece of gossip. And if you did that, oh, you're going to like that. It's already feeding it. It's already feeding it. Are you with me? Okay. We have to make some conscious choices now. We're in detox. Detox isn't pretty. Detox is not fun. You don't even have any idea of just how off you are till you get into detox. Listen to what I'm saying. You don't even know how off you are until you make the commitment to get out of it. Okay? And there's this little process. I don't care whether you're talking about an individual or the collective consciousness. It's called taking your inventory. Taking your inventory. It's an assessment of where things are. Not where they have to be or where they have to stay, but getting out of denial of where things are. Our society is taking inventory. And you don't always like what you see in the inventory, but you can't release what you deny that you have. Listen to what I'm saying. It's not holding us, we're holding it. But you can't let go of something you don't know you're holding, or deny that you're holding. Okay? So many of us that are wondering, what the hell is going on? I can hear my mother now. Has everybody gone crazy? That's what she used to say growing up all the time. Everybody gone crazy? We have prayed this moment in. Listen to what I'm saying. We have prayed this moment in for this much transition, for this much transformation, for this much, yes, even upheaval. I have personally wondered, what was it going to take to get people off their duffs and start showing up? Not just blogging about stuff, but like really showing up. We have to have room for the discourse. We have to have room for all of the sides and everything else to come up to take the inventory. And it's okay. Breathe on that. It's okay. We just can't lose sight of where it is that you want to go. We're looking at the inventory not for judgment or condemnation. And you can get so lost looking at your inventory and thinking, was I that bad? Was I that stupid? Was I that blind? Was I that unkind? And you can get swallowed in that, yes? But what you have to know is that underneath all of that, you're perfect, whole, and complete. Underneath all that, you're perfect, whole, and complete. You go into recovery as a discovery process to unleash that potential that is clogged up with all of the outer stuff. But underneath it all, we are perfect, whole, and complete. Are you with me? We are perfect, whole, and complete. So can we hang in there through the detox? Can we keep loving ourselves through the inventory? Do we have the courage to make amends? Do we have the courage to make amends? You can't skip steps in the spiritual journey. You can't skip steps in the process. Most of us just want to jump to unconditionally loving. We just want to jump to, creative abounding, expression. We just want to leap over here to all the good stuff. But it's a journey. And it is a journey well worth taking. And it's a journey that we are all on together. There's nobody holier than thou. We're all walking through it together. But can we walk through it together? You might have heard the phrase, the universe abhors a vacuum. Whenever there's a space that's open, it gets filled with something. But this is good news. We need to keep creating spaces in our consciousness to be able to be filled with new ideas. And what I call new really isn't new. It's back to the old. It's not just a play on words. We have to go back to our original vibrations. We have to go back to truth, back to wholeness, back to who we were before we got into all the drama, back before all the identities, back before all the oppressions. Go back there. Not back to our glory days of oppression, but back before there was oppression. Not back to the glory days of being colonialistic, but back before when there was oneness. Are you with me? We ground in that vibration. That vibration is perfect, whole, and complete. The universe abhors a vacuum. In the field of economics, we refer to this as demand and supply. We usually say it the other way around, supply and demand. But it is demand first, then the supply. And we know, it's so interesting to me, it's the same kind of dilemma with nobody can accept that there's an ethers, but everybody can believe there's a cloud. It's very similar. So if I'm talking economic terms, everybody gets it. We understand that if there is enough demand, I don't know, let's just say for a car that like runs all by itself, that you don't even have to drive it, okay? That if there is enough demand for a car like that, guess what? We'll have it. It'll be produced. If there is enough demand to have other kind of energy sources other than fossil fuel, we'll have it, yes? There's no doubt in anybody's mind that once we really put a demand out there, that it's going to be there. And that's true not just because of the marketplace. It's true because that's how spirituality works. That whatever there is enough demand for, there will always be its physical outer corollary expression. Listen to what I am saying. Whatever there is the demand for, there will be the way that that is going to express itself in the universe. Our job is to up the demand. Listen to what I am saying. We need to quit trying to solve all of our problems on the supply side, but up the demand. We are never going to end violence trying to end the supply of weapons. As nice as those discussions are, that's not the issue. The issue is, why is there such a demand for the violence? We're never going to end drug addiction trying to cut off the supply of drugs. Drug addiction is not going to stop until we deal with what are the underlying reasons that cause people to want to check out. Drug addiction is a soul issue. We're treating it like a crime issue. It is a soul issue.
You're beautiful, Deborah.
Thank you. And so are you. We're not going to get to a point of being a healthy society until we have a demand for health. Not just trying to control the supply of health care. There has to be a demand for health, a demand for oneness, a demand for truth, a demand for justice, a demand for, when there is enough demand for that, then it will happen. Think about your conversations now. I really want you to think about this, because the next 2 weeks are going to get even more interesting. So the 2016 Republican National Convention begins tomorrow. A week later, the Democratic National Convention begins. So these next 2 weeks in July, we have both of these conventions happening. All right? So We already think we know who the presumptive nominees are, but there's still going to be some drama at these conventions. And come out by the beginning of August, it's on. This political climate, I'm 60. I've never seen anything like this. And the whole world is looking at us. I've had the most interesting conversations. I was rooming a couple of days in New York just this couple of days ago with a Canadian and having very interesting discussions about all this. Where's your conversation? Listen to what I am saying. Where's your conversation? Are you speaking about what you don't want, or are you speaking about what you do? Listen to what I'm saying. Is your conversation more about what you don't want to see? Or is your conversation about what you do want to see? Okay. Because your conversation is fuel to the fire. Listen to what I'm saying. Your conversation is fuel to the fire. So if all of your conversation is about what you don't want, you are giving that your energetic vote. You only have so many chips, so to speak, energetically speaking with your thoughts. Where are you casting your vote? Are you casting your vote in what you don't want to see, or are you casting your vote in what you do? It's the most interesting thing. When you ask people like what they want, this could even be about your career aspirations. Most people will start with what they don't want. Whatever. I don't want to be constricted. I don't want to work for a big company. I don't want to have to travel. I don't want this. I don't want that. But not a vision of what you do. Then if not that, then what? Okay. I want to work for a smaller, more progressive company. I'd like to be able to be home every evening for my family. I'd love to be able to travel and experience other cultures. I'd like more freedom on my job so that I can earn more money as a result of how hard I work. Or I really want to have that steady paycheck. I need to know exactly how much I'm going to make to pay my bills. It's like, what do you want? It's the same thing with us as a society. We have to cut with well, I'm tired of the divisiveness. I don't want to see us pulling each other down or oppressing each other. I'm tired of seeing people excluding. Fine. But put something else in the cloud. Put something else in the ethers. Make some other kinds of deposits. If that's not what you want, what do you want? I want a world that's inclusive. I want a world that's just and fair. I want a world where the United States is a good global citizen. I want a world where people don't have to fear the United States. I want a world where we are using our resources for programs of uplift. These are the things that I want. But we're not going to get it if we don't say it. If we don't articulate it, if that's not the public conversation or the demand, that's not what we're going to get. As much as I want prison reform, we need to stop talking about just prison reform. What do we want? Wholeness and opportunity. We want jobs. We want creative expression. We want everybody to have a chance and equal. an equal and a fair chance. I'm sorry. Ooh. I'm recalling a conversation I had a couple of years back. I was counseling this adolescent. He's about 13, 14 years old. Black guy, very dark skin, big guy. He's probably 280, 300 pounds at 14. And he was adopted by a white family who never dealt with issues of race. And he had some mental things going on with him. I think he was probably a drug baby, and he was very short-fused. Sweet kid, but just short-fused, and he'd get very violent, very, very violent in the things that he would say, you know, and threatening people and whatnot, and it was just having a lot of problems at school. And then he started hanging out with these white kids who were doing stuff that just like teenagers would do that in Santa Cruz you can get away with, but not as a big black boy. And he like nobody talked to him. Nobody would say anything to him. And it hurt me to my heart to have to explain to him, you can't do this. He reminded me of that play of Mice and Men. It was like, somebody's going to kill this guy. Somebody's going to kill him. I could just feel it in my bones. And he didn't get it. And I made this game, like these little sticks, and trying to explain to him, look, for every one stick that says go to jail for your little white friend, there's 6 with your name on it. And it's like, I don't ever want to have to tell a child that. I don't ever want to have to tell a child this kind of stuff. But it felt like his life depended on it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to do that. What I want is to know that every person has a fair chance. And that has to be the discussion. That has to be our conversation. And we have to have the courage to not do the very things we say we don't want done. If you don't want separation, don't separate. If you don't want certain races or groups demonized, then don't demonize. Do you have an embrace that's big enough for everybody? Do you have a vision of a world that can work for everyone? That's where we're being called up to. And if you don't believe that, then that's the problem. Listen to what I am saying. The problem isn't that there are so many other people in fear. The problem is that there are too many of us in doubt. There are too many of us who do not believe that the world that we say that we want is possible. There are too many of us who are acquiescing to an agenda of fear and separation and believing that their power is somehow bigger or greater. That's the problem. Listen to what I'm saying. Our problem is not to try to deal with everybody else and their fears, it's to get rid of our own. Because if we're fearing people in fear, that's just more fear. If we're separating from people separating, that's just more separation. Now's the time to step up the game. Now's the time. We're in these labor pains. There's so much going on. It's collective grief out there. And people respond to grief in so many different ways, and grief has so many different stages. There's anger, there's denial, there's bargaining, there's all these different stages. But can we hold each other right now? If this were a natural disaster, we'd have more compassion. See, if the San Andreas that we're sitting on top of erupted, we'd have more compassion. We'd understand how we're all in this together. Yes? We would be pulling together. Well, guess what? Politically, we're sitting on the San Andreas. I'm not saying that we have to try to control everything. Life has its own destiny. I'm not making judgments about all that. I don't know. It's like each person's got to hit their bottom. I don't know what it's going to take for this nation to bottom. I don't know. But what I do know is drama is optional. That's what I do know. What I do know is that no matter where we are at every stage of the game, there can be joy. There can be peace. There can be the sense of the wholeness and living in possibility. Can we put out a demand for oneness, a demand for love, a demand for unity, a demand for harmony, a demand for one nation indivisible under God? Can we put out a demand for that? And I invite you to do that in your own spheres, whatever that is. Start those conversations on your social networking. Just put out there, hey, I've got a vision of this, that. What's your vision? Just do it. I wish I had had the time to do all the prayer vigils that I wanted to do, and just stay tuned. Look, check your emails and no social networking and whatnot, because we are going to be doing vigilling here during these conventions, but you can do it wherever you are. You can get a few people together and say, hey, you know what? Whatever, 3 o'clock Thursday, let's just all pray. Or let's just all get on the phone and say nothing. Wouldn't that be a great prayer? Just a silent vigil. Are you with me? Now is not the time to get into the fear. Now is the time to look through it, to pierce through it. Just like a body temple that's sick, you look through to the health. You look through it. You don't deny the illness, but you don't let it have the last word. Because the health is in the same body that's ill. There's health in our body politic. We've got to call it forth. Now is the time for us to focus more on the fact that underneath it all, we are perfect, whole, and complete. Detox with dignity. Detox with dignity. Detox with dignity. Let us pray. Yes. Yes. And know that when you're clapping, you're not clapping for me. You're clapping to amplify this consciousness. It is your sign of alignment and agreement. It's so not about personalities right now. It's about consciousness.